Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real head-scratcher from ancient history. How did one of the greatest civilizations ever, pop up in, of all places, the middle of a massive desert? It just doesn't seem possible, right?
So yeah, let's just jump right into that big question. It's a total paradox, isn't it? You've got this incredible beacon of culture, of art, of engineering, surrounded by nothing but sand. How on earth does that happen?
Okay, so to really crack this, we need to try and see the world through their eyes. For the ancient Egyptians, their entire world, their whole reality, was basically defined by two completely opposite things.
Yeah, it was the stark contrast. On one hand, you had what they called the Red Land. And that's exactly what it was, that huge, dry, totally lifeless desert. But then, cutting right through the middle of it was the Black Land. This was this thin, narrow strip of super dark, super fertile soil where everything could grow. And figuring out where that Black Land came from, well, that's the key to this whole story.
So what was the secret sauce? What made this little strip of black land so special? It wasn't magic. It was something way more powerful, and believe it or not, way more reliable.
You know, the old Greek historian Herodotus just nailed it thousands of years ago. He famously said that Egypt is the gift of the Nile. And he didn't just mean it was next to the river. He meant the entire civilization, its food, its money, its whole reason for being was literally a gift from this one amazing river.
And we're not talking about just any old river here. The Nile is an absolute monster. It's the longest river in the world, stretching for more than 4,000 miles. Think about that. It flows all the way from the middle of Africa north to the Mediterranean Sea.
Now, where the river finally meets the sea, it does something really cool. It spreads out, creating this massive, triangle-shaped area of land called a delta. And you can't overstate how important this was. Get this, that one little area held something like 2/3 of all of Egypt's good farmland. It was basically the breadbasket, the engine that fed the entire kingdom.
But the Nile wasn't a lazy river its whole length. Nope. Further south, upstream, the river got wild. It was interrupted by 6 big sections of what are called cataracts, basically these super strong rocky rapids. They were so rough you couldn't really navigate them by boat, which, as we'll see, turned out to be a huge advantage.
Okay, but here's the real kicker. The Nile's greatest gift, the secret ingredient to everything, was that it was predictable. You know, over in Mesopotamia, the rivers flooded violently, unexpectedly, wiping out crops and villages. But the Nile, it was different. Every single year, like clockwork, it would gently rise and flood, leaving behind this amazing, rich layer of black silt. It was this incredible, reliable miracle that basically turned desert sand into super fertile farmland year after year.
So, the Nile gave them food. Check. But it also gave them something else, something just as crucial if you want to build a lasting civilization: safety.
I mean, just look at a map. Egypt was basically a natural fortress. You had these massive, harsh deserts on both sides. Good luck marching an army through that. To the north, you have the huge Mediterranean Sea. And to the south, you've got those cataracts we just talked about, blocking any invasion from that direction. It was incredibly hard for anyone to get in. So think about what you have here. You've got a stable food supply, so no one's starving, and you've got amazing protection from outside enemies. What does that equal? Peace. And in that peace, little farming villages didn't just scrape by, they flourished. They grew bigger, they got richer, and over time, by about 3200 BC, they had organized themselves into 2 large separate kingdoms.
And all that quiet, peaceful growth, well, it was the perfect setup for the next big act in Egypt's story. A story of unification, of bringing these 2 kingdoms together into one powerful whole. Okay, so here's the setup. For a while, Egypt was a land divided. You had Upper Egypt in the south, upriver. Their king wore this distinct, tall, white crown. And then you had Lower Egypt in the north, downriver, controlling that all-important delta. Their king wore a red crown. 2 lands, 2 kings, 2 crowns.
But you know, this kind of division rarely lasts forever. And sure enough, around 3100 BC, this really powerful, really ambitious king from Upper Egypt, a guy named Menes, he looked downriver and thought, you know what? This whole 2 kingdoms thing, it's not working. We'd be so much stronger as one.
And Menes was smart about it. He used a 1-2 punch. First came the muscle. He sent his armies north and straight up conquered Lower Egypt. But then came the brains,
the political savvy. He married a princess from Lower Egypt, a great move to bring the two sides together. And then, in a stroke of genius, he literally smashed the two crowns together, creating a new double crown to symbolize that Egypt was finally one.
And with that act, Menes wasn't just a king anymore. He became something new. He became the very first pharaoh, a title that basically means great house. He also started Egypt's first dynasty, which is just a series of rulers from the same family. And that idea, that tradition, would define Egypt for the next few thousand years.
He had one last thing to do to seal the deal. He founded a brand new capital city, Memphis. And he was really clever about where he put it, right at the spot where Upper and Lower Egypt met. It was the perfect central location to rule his newly united kingdom.
So there you have it. The stage is perfectly set. The Nile gave them food and security. A brilliant leader gave them unity. All the ingredients were there, which leads to the really big question, the one we've all been waiting for. Now that they were united and safe, what amazing, incredible things were they about to build?